Welcome everybody to today's presentation. Thank you so much for joining us. Today we are going to learn about virtual resumes, applicant tracking systems, and some resume advice from the Career Development Center's very own Brittany Straw, who is the Assistant Director of Career Education. If you will please remember to keep your microphone muted during the presentation. Feel free to put anything you need to in the chat box. I'll be keeping an eye on that. And once Brittany is finished with her presentation, we should have some time to go over your questions. Yes. Thank you so much, and we can go ahead.
All right, thank you, Michelle. So hello and welcome everyone. My name is Brittany Straw. I'm the Assistant Director, I'm so sorry about that, Assistant Director of Career Education in the University of Arkansas Career Development Center. I oversee our professional development program, Career Track Razorback. So I'm so happy today to be talking about creating a digital resume for your job search. This has been an excellent series, and so we're really happy to have you here. First, I just kind of want to talk about the Career Development Center's job search website. I know we've been a little heavy kind of on resumes, but what's really important is that you're searching and you're knowing how to search. And if you're having trouble with that, you can go to career.uark.edu and click on students and then go to the job search information there. On there, we have information about Career Tracks Razorbacks, which is the professional development program we oversee. And that is all based via Blackboard. It's a non-credit program. However, if you want to take it for credit, you can do Classroom to Career, UNV 1401. I believe that George Winter will be the professor for that this semester. And that is an 8-week class, and that is a 1 credit hour course, and it goes through some of the same information. Other things we're seeing in that website is job search tips for special populations. So this includes our veterans, international students, underrepresented students, and students with disabilities. We also have our Handshake portal there. So if you're not familiar with that, that's our ultimate guide to job searching, internship searching, and all the Fortune 500 companies are on there. So that is definitely a plus there. And then anyone who's looking into going to the academic job search, we have information there. And Michelle, if you can just kind of tell me who we have in our webinar today, that'd be great. I can't see the chat box, or else I would look.
Sure. We have a couple of PhD students, one in neuroscience, one in chemical engineering.
Okay.
A graduate student in public policy. And if anybody, here we go, another one, chemistry graduate student from Kevin Biochem.
Great.
We
have a nice little diverse group. Looks like we have a lot of upper level. So look at you all making great use of your time. So proud of you. And then if you're unemployed or underemployed at this time, definitely let us know that. Please note that you can connect with us, and there'll be more information on various ways you can connect with us. We are here to help you, and we are open during the summertime, and we are open for virtual meetings as well. Okay, well, we'll go ahead and just get started. So first, we're going to talk about an applicant tracking system, or ATS. And this is a system that scans your resume and rates it and scores it based on content, and then ranks you based off of that score. And the way it works is that the software looks to match what you have on your documents versus what is in the job description. And so it's looking at experience, qualifications, and skills. The way that the ATS system works, or kind of the process for it, is that they create a job posting. Let me see. They create a job posting, and then candidates apply, and then applications are kind of shortlisted, meaning like their top 5. And then after that, they're reviewed and they schedule interviews, and then a candidate is hired. Please note, I will share these slides later as well. And so how do you know if a company is using an ATS system? There are a couple of popular ones here, and I have that there. But one thing you'll notice is that the name will usually change, or the URL will usually change. Sometimes it opens in a different window, sometimes it doesn't. And that's how you can definitely tell that it's using an ATS system to review your application. So how are you going to be prepared? That's the big thing we're going to talk about today. A lot of people used to call this the black hole. They would say, I'd apply, but I can't get my resume past the black hole. And so that's kind of a term, older term used. But really what they're talking about is the applicant tracking system. And it's really just making sure that you're tailoring every resume and cover letter to the position you're applying for. And so that's usually one of the problems that happens, is that they just make a generic resume and then they go on Indeed and they just upload it to every job they're interested in. You should have one master resume with all information on it. And then when you apply for a job, you should copy and paste the important information into a one-page document that is catered to each job posting. So one master resume, with everything on it that you're keeping updated and having reviewed. But when you're applying for a job, you should use a one-page resume document that has the same language and phrases, acronyms, things of that nature on it that is in the job posting and that is related to the actual job posting or job description. Format. So the best format for this is reverse chronological order. So that means starting with the most recent first. It's always good to have your work experience in order. That helps the recruiter just kind of see what are you doing that really relates, and kind of work back, see if there's any gaps. If you have gaps, that's fine. We can teach you some tips and tricks on that as well. What we're not looking for here with this resume is a long document. We are looking for a short document that has great achievement statements and that really relates to the post, okay, the job posting itself. And what we don't want is for you to put any irrelevant information in there, anything that's inappropriate or kind of outdated. So we wouldn't want to put like an objective statement on here. And we definitely wouldn't want to put references available upon request, because that's just taking up important real estate on our document for our actual achievements and things. Feel free, if you have questions, to put those in the chat. Michelle will be reviewing the chat and let me know when we have someone that needs a question answered. You definitely want to keep your fonts simple. So I do have a couple of fonts here that I recommend. Helvetica, George, Cambry, Franklin, Arial are just some common ones. The most important part is to include the keywords. If you don't remember anything else from this webinar, is to look for keywords or buzzwords within the job description and make sure that you're using that same type terminology. And then we definitely want to avoid putting things in the header or footer of the document. And the reason we're doing this is because those ATS systems cannot read the header or the footer. So if you're putting your name or address or anything in there, it will just show a document with no name. And so we don't want to put anything there. Some of the old tricks is to like hide buzzwords in those areas. We don't want to do that. So we really just want to use this time and space for the best purpose necessary to get that job. So just avoiding your resume headers and footers. Now that does mean that sometimes you can adjust your page length a little bit differently to give you just a little bit more real estate on the page. The first thing we want to start off with is your contact information. Definitely your name. Your mailing address is actually optional. I will say you don't have to put your exact mailing address on there. You can put city and state just to let them know that you are located locally. An appropriate email address. I always let people know that this email address should only be tied to like a LinkedIn profile and only job search applications. So it shouldn't be tied to any like Facebook or anything like that. Your phone number, this is a great time for you to check your voicemail to make sure you have a professional voicemail. Sometimes we think we do, but we haven't checked it in years, and maybe the recording is messed up, there's an error, or that lady really isn't coming on to say, leave your message after the tone. Your LinkedIn URL. Now, this is if you're thinking, I have so much information, I can't just turn in a one-page document. You can have a LinkedIn profile, and adding that LinkedIn URL connects them to that so they can see additional information that you think could be necessary for the application. Remember, you can customize that LinkedIn URL, and so I definitely would shorten it. I would remove all excess numbers, just make it the URL plus your Brittany, like Brittany.Straw, B Straw, Straw Brittany, something like that. I would stay away from underscores and spaces. Those things are really hard to kind of see. Again, we're not going to use any header or footers. We're not going to be putting this information in any headers or the footers of the pages. Things that we don't want to include, especially if we're applying for jobs here in the United States. Demographic information such as your age, marital status, sex, race, and height. We don't want them to be able to identify us. So certainly not social security numbers. We don't want our identity stolen. Driver's license numbers or student ID numbers. I know the student ID numbers goes against everything we've taught you, but we definitely don't want to be adding that information in there, okay? Or a picture. Here are just a couple of examples of how you can do that. The first one is an example without a mailing address, just so you can kind of see how that would look. And then there's just a couple of sample other ones there. So there's no exactly right or wrong way. The most important thing is that your name is the largest font on the page so that they know that, and that the other information is still legible. No font on your resume should be smaller than 10 point. We want to make sure that they can read it and understand it. The next thing we're going to talk about is your career summary. So this is really important. The career summary is what has really taken the place of a career objective on the resume. It should be no longer than 4 lines. It's really going to highlight your career. This is a great way also if you're changing careers, like maybe you have a lot of leadership because you've been in college and now you're going into more corporate world. So you can kind of highlight some of those leadership skills that you've learned and how they're transferable into the corporate world. What was I going to say? Also, you can add like 1 or 2 job titles that you are targeting so that the applicant system can track those things. But this should definitely be following your header or contact information, okay? If you have relevant experience, we definitely want to keep your career summary short. If you don't, it may just be a little bit longer. Think of the resume summary as a attention grabber, or actually like a headline to really get them to focus in on your resume. And then we just want to make sure that we're really keeping that to 3 to 4 points if possible. So here's one of a recent graduate in hospitality. If you look at it, they have years of experience. So this should only be tangible information. There shouldn't just be a list of soft skills here. They talk about an award that they got and how they've demonstrated their professional skills and leadership. Things that are also great to add in here are language skills and the level of those. So right here, we're seeing that they're fluent in Greek and they have an intermediate knowledge in Spanish. Technical skills are also excellent to put in your summary. So proficient in Word. And then any type of certifications or trainings that you have, you can also highlight those there too. So that's really what makes this a good summary here. So this summary is for someone who's changing careers, and it's a little bit longer. So I'm not going to read it to you. I will allow you just a moment to kind of read it while I'm not talking here. Okay, so one thing you'll notice is they really start off with just kind of high overview, and then they kind of break it down to some of the more details, which is good, um, because they're really telling you the scope of their responsibilities. They do highlight a little bit of their hard and soft skills that they bring to the table. So that's great. With the soft skills, they're kind of going more in populations they're able to relate to, which is works really well, especially in this time and age. We have a large demographic in the workforce. And then the experience section is the last section that we're going to focus on today. So the experience section can be compiled of many things, but what we're usually seeing is past work experience. So companies that you've worked for, dates of employment, then job title, and then achievement statements there. So this is kind of what it includes. You can use this, say that maybe it wasn't a job, maybe it was an internship. You can still do the same thing. Your job title would just be internship, but the company name and the location would could still be the same information, and then your dates of employment. And instead of maybe accomplishments or achievements, this might be things that you learned while in that intern or externship. Same thing if this is job shadowing, or if this is a class, say that we're highlighting class experience here, then instead of the company name, it would be the class name. And then student in the name of the project that you're doing, and talk about, was this in spring 16? And then what did you accomplish? What did you learn? What type of software? What kind of lab information did you use for that? Okay, so here's some examples. I'm sorry. First, we're going to go over our achievement statements, and then we'll get to our examples. So to create your achievement statements, you've heard me kind of mention that throughout the presentation. You want to have about 4 things. The first thing is it needs to start with an action verb. I always tell my students to avoid using help, work, assist, or provide, because it's so generic. It really doesn't give us a clear sight of what you've done. And so start with your action verb. The tense definitely has to do with if you're currently doing it or not doing it, if you choose present or past tense. Who or what benefited? The skill that you used, and how was it successful? So if you can see here, we start off with our action verb in black, and then who or what benefited, that is in a blue text with the underline. And then what skill did you use is in italics red text. And then lastly, how was it successful is in uppercase green text. So first example is improved 500 donor experiences by creating a walk-in Excel database that decreased wait time by 30%. So definitely how was successful, or what was the result, is really good. That helps us quantify a little bit more. If you can have that, sometimes that's not always possible, and we understand that, but definitely if you can find that information out, that really helps us. I know a lot of you have done social media for companies, for your parents' companies, for organization. So I'm going to skip down to the last example here, and it says that you upgraded the organizational social media presence by increasing total followers by 5% on Facebook and Instagram. So really talking about what was the increase, what was the impressions, those types of things, of followers amount. So that really helps us there. Here's just the example of how you can do that. We have 2 hospitality examples here. One is somebody working at a front desk at Marriott, and then the other is a food service manager. So I wanted to show these because a lot of times students are working in a management position or in a front desk position, whether that's at their work study job or at their part-time job, like at a Marriott or at a small business. And so really talking about maybe you did complete 20 hours a week, but you maintained a full academic coursework load and a 3.0 GPA. That's definitely an achievement. What did you do there other than data entry? Did you prepare Excel reports for one of the partners, or did you respond to guest concerns, so identifying needs there quickly? So I always think that's good. Anytime that you can show that you've grown in that position, you can add promotions and how you promote it up. It's really good as well. I just want to show kind of how it benefited the skills they used and how it's successful, just kind of show how that is in there. If you notice, they all started, except for respond, with the action verb there. And then we talked about the skills that they used and kind of what the benefit is. The other thing I wanted to show is numbers, kind of describing your population. So if you look in the second example, it says directed 40 employees. So that gives us some quantification there. And 7 food and beverage retail outlets. So we're given an exact number. And then I always tell people, if you can use how much, how many, or how often, that will help you quantify. So in that last example, you'll see I underlined weekly inventory. So it's great if you do an inventory. It's really good if you can tell us how many objects you're inventory and how often you're doing that, completing that inventory as well. So here's just a quick example of how to quantify the how much, how many, how often. And sometimes, so one thing I did want to show in this example is that sometimes you don't have all three. It's not like the formula that I showed you before. This is more just questions you're asking yourself to verify that you did put your numbers in there, quantitative results. Want to be mindful of our time here, so I'm going to skip over to additional resume sections that we'd be looking at. So things, academic background and credentials, we kind of talked about those, trainings and certifications. Other things that really go underneath the experience section can be affiliations or community service, even your computer skills or computer language. I think we had some graduate students on here, so if you have research experience, that's great. If you have lab experience, that's good as well. Any of our students who have traveled abroad, I know that that's not probably currently happened, but if you traveled or studied abroad, that's also good. It really shows a diverse skill set there and how you're doing some different things, and maybe even your different measurements. Maybe you're doing metric there as opposed to here. Honors and leadership, languages, all places that we definitely want to look at and look at formatting using the achievement statement model that we've looked at today. So for additional resources, you can contact our office. This is our office information here. You can call us, you can go to our website to get some more samples or information that we have. We are located in ARKU 607. Starting in the fall. I don't think we will be taking students in person at the beginning, but we can phase to that later on. Please know that we're here to help you with not only just your resume and interview skills, but job searching, career fairs and career events. I do want to highlight that all of our career fairs and career events this semester will all be virtual, and career advising. So we are currently doing career advising, and that's virtual. And then our social media below, I think that many of you may have found out about this career tips series through our social media, but we do post a lot of information there. We also post different tips. So that's a good way to get just some passive information about career development without having to sit through a webinar. Just want to remind you that next week, or not next week, our next session, Career Tips Tuesday, is August the 11th, and that's using marketing techniques to improve your resume. I believe that George Winter will be leading us in that session, so we're definitely looking forward to that. We definitely thank you for joining us today. So now I'm going to open it up for some questions.
Great, and we have one question coming in the chat that was actually answered as we went along. So if anyone else has questions, please feel free to jump in at this time.
That's good. That's great when we answer them during the actual presentation.
All right, and Luis has asked if we have previous sessions of the series available on the website or elsewhere. And the sessions have been recorded. Carolyn, if you're here, would you mind pulling up that link and sharing it?
Absolutely. So the website, our homepage is career.uark.edu. And then if you go below, and I'll put the link in the chat, but if you go below that to the COVID page or the COVID part of our homepage, then there's a section for students. So when you click on that and click on students, one of the accordions is view the summer 2020 career tips series. And as we're recording them and going through the summer, those will be housed there. And I just put the information in the chat.
Thank you. And then Brittany, we have two questions. The first is, do you remember any applicants whose resumes really stand out compared to others? What was special about these resumes?
So yes, I have served on various search committees. I will say the things that stand out the most is when they highlight the preferred qualifications. So if you're applying for a job at the university, usually they have the qualifications, and then they have like a preferred qualifications. So highlighting those, especially if it's even for a student position, there's been times where we weren't able to rank a candidate as high because they did not put on their application or on their resume that they had Microsoft Office skills, and we needed to know that they have those skill sets. So being sure that you are really looking at that job application and what are the minimal qualifications, because if you're not meeting the minimum qualifications, we can't really move you forward to the preferred qualifications. So really outlining that clearly for us on there. And if you, like I said, if you don't have space on that resume, to put that in your job application. And I always tell people to make sure that you really review that every time you apply for a job, and don't say see resume. That just shows like a lack of responsibility. So go ahead and retype those things or copy and paste that information in there. That's what makes the applicant stand out.
Thank you. We have another question from Grant, which is, any tips on how to best handle the virtual career fair this fall?
So that's a good one. I would say working on your personal branding statement or your personal profile. And that can be derived from some of the information in your summary, years of experience or years of expertise in this area. Have you recently had a major accomplishment or a recent certification that sets you apart? So having a strong introduction of yourself, knowing about that company, and asking. It's always important to have the ask in there. So what are you asking for? Are you asking to get to know more about that company? Are you asking if they have internship opportunities, so that they know kind of which way to direct you in the conversation?
Thank you. And we are coming right up on time, but if we have any other questions, now is your time. Oh, looks like there's another one. I can get to the chat. Okay, so Joshua is a PhD student in chemical engineering and has heard that it's hard to stay in the state of Arkansas for work, I'm assuming, after graduation. Do you have any suggestions on how to combat this difficulty?
Yes, so I would say Joshua definitely being open to maybe some different opportunities than what you're thinking. So as far as chemical engineering, you might be thinking, I want to work for a company like Unilever. They have a lot of products that I could test. Opening up your search and making it wider, thinking about the cosmetic industry, about the food industry, some of those other things. They're needing chemical engineers as well. Usually we have L'Oreal that recruits with us. And so just being open to not just one type of company. Also being aware that you might have to relocate to get your foot in the door somewhere, but there's always a possibility of once you get your foot in the door and you're learning more skill sets, that you can sometimes just come back to where you really want to be.
Thank you. And there's a question about sharing the presentation. We have a recording of this full presentation that will be available on the website within a couple of days. Brittany, did you have the slides available online anywhere? Or are these ones that
I don't think this particular set is. There's a set similar to them that is available on the alumni site, but I can share these slides. So when Carolyn goes ahead and uploads them, we'll have the slides available as well. There are some links on there, so you can click on those, and I hope that that's helpful for you all. I did notice that Carolyn said something about every virtual fair. There'll be a counselor or a peer mentor that you can talk to before employers. And so that's great. Go ahead and start practicing your personal branding statement or personal profile. And then take a few minutes before you start to talk to employers to test it out. That's what we're here for, is to help you.
Great. All right. Well, thank you everyone so much for your questions. And thank you so much, Brittany, for sharing your knowledge and your tips and wisdom on this subject. As mentioned before, we will have this presentation, a recording of this presentation available on our website within a few days.
Okay. Thank you.